Hey everybody, once again, welcome to Mothers Unfiltered. We are live once again. I always want to say thank you to the audience who are tuning in now, 10 minutes from now, an hour from now, or 5 weeks from now. Thank you for taking this opportunity to come out and listen and talk to us and just have your perspectives about what's going on in our community. This is part 2 of our vote. I wanted to do something special because this is such a serious election. And we had to continue from our first episode for part 1. So before I get into all of the dramatics and all that, I definitely want to give the opportunity for Ty to speak, drop some little knowledge for us.
I want to make it really quick. My little PSAs. We have our Facebook group, Mothers Unfiltered LLC. Congratulations, Kia made it an LLC, so we love that. Good job. I think I'm just going to keep it really, really short and say all other information that I want to give, just go to our Mothers Unfiltered Facebook page, and then I'll give the specifics in there. I think this topic is really important, so I want to jump in.
Yes, and like and subscribe. But jumping right into that, I always give a little statistic and just let everybody know what's good. So 2020's now. Early voting in 2020 has already exceeded all of 2016's early votes. 51 million people already have casted their votes, which is a phenomenal thing, just in thinking about it. But as you already know, a lot of people still feel that their vote is not being heard. There's a lot of restrictions, and we're going to touch upon that. The original conversation that we had in part 1 was with Kashim, Charles, Liz, and I, of course, will be attending through conference. With that being said, I have Mr. Wade Carter here, and I wanted to find somebody who can speak on the opposing side. I want to put out there that we're going to be civil, regardless of what we feel. We're going to be respectable for our comments and our viewers. But we have somebody here who is wanting to vote for Donald Trump. And I'm assuming that you have been a conservative voter for some time. And I want to give you your chance and your opportunity to say, hey, 1, have you voted already? And then 2, is there certain reasons why you say, you know what? I think Donald Trump can do it good again. He's already had these 4 years, and I think he's going to make America continue to be great again.
That's really what it comes down to is, he's had 4 years or just under 4 years. And I feel like what's happened, economically, without a shadow of a doubt, I think we're doing great. And I know Liz will say, whatever she wants to say, but I think before the pandemic hit, we were definitely seeing, I actually, just so everybody knows, I hate the term white and I hate the term black. And that's also a point of contention for me and my sister. But, I feel like everybody was winning. I feel like everybody was included. Everybody had a common goal, and that was just the American dream, right? I feel like, it's really interesting because you talk to white and you talk to black people, and it's the same thing. Everybody felt like, mom and pop shops were popping up here and there. Over the last 3 years, I think that's without a question. I don't think that's debatable. The SBA was lending to black people at a higher rate than ever before. You had more black small businesses popping up. You had more Hispanic small businesses popping up. Even here in St. Augustine, which is predominantly white, I can't tell you the number of white and black businesses that we've had pop up. And it's just a cool thing to see everybody succeeding. And and that's really the name of the game for me.
Okay, and the little caveat to that. Now, when you say this when you see this everyone succeeding, you're just looking at it maybe from an economic standpoint compared to anything that has to do with social issues, or was that your main? Because sometimes people have those main things, like the healthcare that's my main thing. Are you looking at it that way?
So I mean, even with the social issues and the racism, I mean, Liz will tell you, and she'll call it a predominantly white city that I live in. She'll call it a racist city, and if I sat here and said I haven't experienced racism, I'd be lying to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I have 2 under the age of 2, so you'll hear them hollering in the background. But
That's fine.
and that's anywhere I go in the house. So I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's
Um, but you know, I consider myself to be. I don't want to sit here and be vain, and I don't want to say that I'm successful, but I definitely think that I've worked really hard. My wife and I have been married 14 years. It hasn't always been, smooth sailing. I've always had multiple jobs. Even now, we have 2 businesses that we run, and I just feel like that's, you can have that. You know,
I hear you.
I think, yeah, I mean, and just kind of going back to the social injustice and racism talk, I think it's a culture thing. And if you want to, I think if you're looking for it, perception is reality, right?
Never heard that before, but okay.
Perception is reality.
Perception is reality, and let me just add to that.
Sure.
Some people's perception and their reality is
One and the same.
you need to think about women's health care that has now been tampered with, the LGBTQ population, the laws that's been taken away. Let's even talk about recently when you want to speak about diversity trainings and workshops and cultures. And I'm getting into the specifics of what's been taken away from us. Again, I understand that maybe your perception and your reality, which we can't debate that, has been economically good. But you understand that economically, there are other things that have been affected. We have kids in cages that 545 of them cannot locate their parents, or their parents located. Not past that fact that we also have rapes and sexual assault in those cages under the Trump administration. Let's also add to that they went back to sterilizing women without their knowledge and consent. So again, your reality, I'm happy that you were able to grow and maintain, but some others are not in that position.
So, it's funny because Liz mentioned the cages earlier, and I kind of chuckled because I knew that was going to come up. They've been around for a while, guys. I mean, let's just call a spade, right?
They have.
No. You mean to tell me that? And here's another thing, right? Is we can't say that America has grown racist over the last 4 years.
No, it's been racist.
You think it's been recent?
No, racist has been racist.
Well, I just want to interject this real quick. The country has always been racist, and of that there is no doubt. And all you have to do is look at the United States Constitution. Within the United States Constitution, there's an article known as the Fugitive Slave Clause. And in that Fugitive Slave Clause, it directs the non-slave holding states that they are judicially responsible for the capture and returning of people of our skin complexion to their enslavers. So that very fact that article is written in the original U.S. Constitution, and that article was reinforced by the Fugitive Slave Act of 1779, and the subsequent Fugitive Slave Act that occurred in the early 1800s proves without a doubt that the country is actually a racist country. Then we add on the Dred Scott case. The Dred Scott case was in 1857, and the Dred Scott case specifically states from the United States Supreme Court said that this country was not made for us. That's coming directly from the Supreme Court of the United States. Okay, we cannot sue for our freedom. This is back prior to the Civil War. We cannot We had no rights other than rights that states may give you based upon you being vouched for a white landowner. These are the facts. They are written within the U.S. Constitution. They are written within state, federal case law. So we cannot deny that this is not a racist country.
And I think the racism also bears itself out in the statistics and the data, in that Black people are overrepresented in any sort of metrics that you would look at as far as negatively, you know, whether it's incarceration, life expectancy, like just anything on the negative, you are going to see Black people overrepresented in that statistical population. And conversely, anything good, whether it's academically, whether it's financially, wealth, income, the average white person without any high school diploma on average has more wealth than a Black person with the college degree. You will find Black people underrepresented in any sort of positive category. And so, having been here in this country before it was even a country, I mean, either Black people, either this is a racist country, either these outcomes are, you know, there's some hand tipping the scale, or, you know, Black people are just the most dysfunctional group, you know, prior to show up on the face of the earth.
Right.
It can only be one of those two explanations.
Well, I wanted to ask Wade, and I'm sorry for just, and like I said, I wanted, and I told you prior that I wanted to just get to know your perspectives and those things. I wanted to ask you, you know, is it because you're successful? And please correct me, and I'm so bad with names, Charles. What was the senator who said in a joking manner that if Blacks were more conservative, then police would not? You said Senator Graham?
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you. So Senator Graham, in a joking way, said, hey, if Blacks were more conservative, then they wouldn't get harassed by police. Now, even though he said this in a joking manner, there's still some truth to that. And I think when I hear people speak, well, you know, if you go looking for trouble, you'll get trouble. Do you feel that the reason why you are, you know, in the situations and outcomes that you have is because maybe, you know, the areas you live in, you know, you're not living in maybe a predominantly Black neighborhood, so you don't see it so much. You know, you have your kids in a good school, so you have the best education. So, you know, everything is working for you. So it's like, you know, you're in your bubble, so you don't see what else is happening. Do you think that might be the case? Or?
So it's funny, Liz No's laughing because, sorry, Liz, I totally used your full name. So Liz No is laughing because we had this conversation here recently, and actually we've had it a couple of times, because she told me that I live in a bubble, and, you know, my thing is she won't live here because she says it's racist. So if I live in a racist bubble, don't you think that it would be more predominant, that I would feel the hate, I would feel the social injustice, the animosity? No, you don't think so?
No, because
can I jump in here?
You stated it earlier. Your perception is your reality, and that's something that none of us can challenge. I can't tell you you're wrong for seeing your life the way you do. So just to answer that question, Liz.
Go ahead, Liz. Go ahead, Liz.
All right, go ahead, Liz.
I've been holding my breath here.
I love it.
So, okay, for those watching, if you haven't figured it out yet, that's my brother. And believe it or not, we have the same parents. We grew up in the same house. We couldn't be any more different if we tried. And it's not that I won't live in the city that he lives in because it's racist. That's not it. I've had my racist experiences there, but I've had my racist experiences everywhere. Just had one last weekend here where I live, and I love where I live, right? I mean, and I am not the person that pulls the race card. It has to be something extremely quantifiable that I've personally experienced, where I can say, okay, that's undeniable. That's what it was. In terms of, you know, speaking directly to what Wade mentioned, you know, if I live in this bubble, wouldn't I be the one that experiences it the most? And he does experience it quite a bit. And what he does is if you don't mind me, Ray, just speaking very plainly, he excuses a lot of things away. I mean, I ran into one bad white person. That doesn't make white people bad. I ran into one bad cop. That doesn't make cops bad. I ran into one poor situation or one, whatever it is, it doesn't make everybody bad. It's strange though, because when you run into one black person that commits a crime, there they go again. When you, you know what I mean? Or it's just, I don't feel like it works the same way. And here's the thing, no matter what we're talking about, it doesn't have to be race. It could be anything. A horrible example, but what I'm going to use is when we're speaking about law enforcement. I'm about that I can't see less eye to eye on anything than that, I suppose, right? Mm-hmm. When you're speaking about if you had a doctor, and I think all doctors are heroes, right? Doctors are commendable. They've done all the right things. They're doing a service for the community. They get paid well for it, but they're doctors. If you have a doctor that puts people to sleep and subsequently rapes them, they may not continue to practice. We can all agree that there's something wrong with that, and that it doesn't make, it's not disparaging to all doctors, and we shouldn't hate all doctors, but has it happened? Yes. Are they allowed to practice anymore? No. And if we did allow it to continue, if we said, well, it was one-off, let's get him a little counseling and put him back in the field, we would all have a problem with that. That's how I feel about law enforcement. Law enforcement, anybody in any uniform, I think I've told you guys over and over, thank you for your service. Any person in any uniform, especially our police officers, if I'm in danger, I'm calling 911, right? And so don't get me wrong, but now there's bad law enforcement out there. And my whole thing is we need to weed them out. Police brutality is a real issue. That's not a matter of perception.
Well, I wanted to mention, I'm glad you mentioned police officers in general. So just recently, I think it was last night, please correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone heard the story. So in New York City, there was a law enforcement illegally going through the city on a loudspeaker and saying Trump 2020.
Yes.
So basically, people are opening their windows, it's late night and they're listening to see what's going on. And people run downstairs with their cameras like, hey, this is illegal. You can't do that. He said, F off, Trump 2020, blah, blah, blah. So the police officer willingly, illegally, and it's on YouTube video, so just in case somebody wasn't sure, is promoting, which they cannot do. I was never in law enforcement as a police officer, but I served in the military, such as Kashim and Charles. And there's certain things you cannot do in uniform. They also had somebody else in uniform at the voting polls, and they had the mask that says Trump 2020. You cannot be at the voting polls and in a uniform and have, promoting somebody. It has to be a universal thing. So I feel like when you see these different things or you hear about it, is it a thing? Are you still making those one-off? Like, well, this cop, he was going to get fired anyway. So he was like, let me just go out. Like, are you say that?
Actually, no. I mean, here's my thing, right?
Yeah.
Is I really don't feel like America is racist.
Okay.
Okay, that's, again, my perception. Whether or not it's reality, I don't know. Okay. But I think that even in a predominantly white city, I don't think that everybody that I come in contact with is racist. Now, what I do think, I think the word race, and I've told Liz this before, I think the word racism has lost its value. I think we are prejudiced, and I think that's all of us. I think when we see, for example, a white person driving a Ferrari, what do we go and say? We say, oh, he's successful. But when we see a black person do it, what do we say? Oh, he must be a rapper, right? Or he's doing something wrong, right? And I mean, I think that's all of us, right? We all start juggling things in our head.
Yeah, because black people are poor, and there's literally we know that mostly all black people are poor, and there's like literally no other way that this person could be driving a Lamborghini.
No, that's not true.
It's some sort of statistical anomaly.
No,
that's why our minds go to that, because we know where would a black person get money from a Lamborghini from, except for entertainment, sports, or legal activity.
I do agree with Wade in that context, in this one context, in that the word racism has lost its meaning. I'm a very, very technical person. What this is what it is. If you want to make something up, whatever, you can't use that word. Okay, it has to be something else, right? So, for instance, racism is viewing and treating people as inferior, viewing your own group of people as superior. Now, for Wayne to not accept that about the United States, that's a big question mark when everything is written in writing by the actual racist people themselves in the actual Constitution, in federal case law. So you either just don't want to accept that reality, because that goes beyond perception. There's perception, which is how you filter in the truth through your own lenses, and then there is the actual truth. So the actual truth is you cannot deny it because it's written in black and white. It's like people who say, it's like people. Just 1 second. It's like people who say, "Oh, the Confederates were not fighting for slavery." Well, the president and the vice president of the Confederacy, the vice president said in the infamous Cornerstone speech that it was about slavery. Every single Confederate state issued a Declaration of Succession, which states why they're leaving the Union. And they all said it's because of slavery. So when you have something in black and white saying this is what it is, and then on the other hand, you're like, oh, it can't be that, whatever. There's a form of denial that goes on based upon, again, you not wanting to accept the actual truth. So
well, let me ask you this: is it? And please correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's something where, and I'm playing devil's advocate, where okay, this is how we used to be, just like in reference to sexism. So women stay in the kitchen, get those babies going. But now women are business owners, women are leaders. We're this, we're that. So do you feel that progression has came?
How do they get that progression? They got their butts kicked. That's how they got that progression. When women protested, women were arrested. Look up the women's suffrage movement. When black women protested to vote, they got their butts kicked. When African Americans protested to vote, they got.
So you feel like we're still living in the same atmosphere that we were some 200 and something years ago?
Well, it's easy to prove. I'm gonna prove it right now. Okay. All right. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was written, signed, and passed by a democratically controlled Congress. The Democrats controlled the House of Representatives and they controlled the Senate. They passed that bill in 1964, not the Republicans. It's very easy to look up. Go right to congress.gov. You can look up that act. That's how it was passed. That law did not go into effect until 1968. I was born in 1974. So the law went into effect essentially 6 years prior to me being born. And I'm probably, like I said, I'm probably the oldest person out of this group, all right, at age 46. Okay, so now we're looking at dates now, whatever. 1968, when the law went into effect, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, they had 12 years to implement that law. 12 years to implement those laws, which means the laws were not concluded until 1980. 1980 was 40 years ago. Now, just because a law changes does not mean the people who fought against it changed. And there was a significant number of people who fought against that law. In fact, the majority of the Southern Democrats all fought against it. They happened to be in the majority at that particular point in time because progressive Democrats from the North had annihilated a lot of the Dixiecrats. So they were able to get that pushed in 1964 with the help of the Republicans. In fact, only 3 Republicans voted against it. So, and by and large, it was a bipartisan bill. However, the fact still remains is the people who instituted those policies, who fought against segregation, who fought against the Equal Housing Act, who fought against all, they were still in power even after it got pushed through. So at age 80, my mother, who's 71, was born a second-class citizen in this country. And I'll move it over here. Second-class citizen. To include Ty's parents, to include your parents, to include anyone who was born prior to 1964. 64.
Well, and I think that
wait, really quick, guys, if you're just tuning in, this is the second part of our vote. You see everyone on. We have Mr. Wade Carter that's on, and we wanted to pick his brain in regards to him being a Trump supporter. So we're just having some great conversation. And Hashim, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just going to chime in on the racism bit. I know that there's been some contention over this, and I even seen Pence in the vice presidential debate. He pretty much solidified the Republican Party position, saying that systemic racism basically is the Republicans' party position, that they do not believe that that exists in America today, and quite possibly that it ever existed. And I will say this in regards to what Wade was saying, things being the same or different 200 years ago versus now, overt violence, overt racism, that sort of thing, you don't necessarily see that anymore. Definitely, at least not how it was 200 years ago, right? You don't see people just being snatched off the street and dragging down to, the town square and, burned alive or whatever,
Well, you're not seeing them being burned alive and hung, but it actually is still happening.
George Floyd.
But I mean, as far as financially or whatever, though, at that time, blacks owned and controlled maybe around 1% of all wealth in the country. And that is still absolutely true today. The thing is that at that time, me and my wife were just looking at a trailer today about the Ocoee massacre and how they burned and killed those people out of all their land and possessions in Ocoee, Florida, in order to take control and possession of it. And the thing that happens is, honestly, once you have really full control and possession of most of the land and the resources and the mechanisms of power in America, there really is no more need to have that sort of overt racism, Ku Klux Klan, hood-wearing racism. It's really more of on a autopilot sort of thing, right? It's baked into the cake already. The cake is already done. It's already there. An example of that is, let's take employment, right? So studies show like some 70% of employment is done by referral. And so since we've set up a country now where white people have most of the businesses and management positions and make those decisions, and since most of them don't know or live around black people or whatever, just by natural, hey, going through your company's typical referral program, I'm just referring family and friends. Well, the average white person's family and friends is other white people. So it just kind of, perpetuates itself without really doing anything sort of overt, or that's not racist, right?
Well, if I may interject, I told Wade that I'm going to play devil's advocate. And the reason why I'm going to play devil's advocate, because there's many black people, white people, whatever, they just cannot stand Biden. Like, okay, we understand you had a speech impediment. We understand that you're kind of old. We all have old loved ones in our family. But he had passed a crime bill. And that was something that was just a whole big type of controversy. Did anybody here, let me ask you, Liz, so knowing Biden's past, knowing that he's incarcerated tens of thousands of African Americans and Latino men, I think even Trump said it on the debate, 47 years in office, and now you're talking about what you can do. How do you say, you know what, even though I know you kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, I'm still not voting for you, Trump. Like, what goes in your mind process when you're by yourself in that ballot and you're filling it out? Like, what makes one better than, because that's serious. My father was affected by the crime bill. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people's families was affected and did severely time. And if we know about anybody getting incarcerated, they're not being treated with a slap on the back. They're getting mistreated and raped and blah, 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 blah. So how do you end up saying, you know what? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
Okay, so there is no eeny, meeny, miny, mo. There's no doubt in my mind. I said it the first time. I'll say it again. I'll say it again and again and again. Right? In this case, if the choice is binary, it is Trump or Biden. Biden is not the perfect candidate. He's not, right? In terms of the crime bill, you also have to go back in time. I believe it was Joy Behar earlier this week that was talking about it. At the time the passed, the biggest people pushing for it were leaders in the Black community that were tired of the crime in the Black community. So he was at that time, if we had a time machine and we could go back now, because now we know what we know and the effect that it had on our community now, and there are better ways to do things, or there were better ways to do things. But at that time, it was Black leaders that wanted the crime bill passed. I mean, without the intentional consequence of, oh my God, this is going to decimate our communities. It was, can my kids just walk home from school safely? Right. And so that was the purpose behind the driving force of that in the Black community was, hey, we have a crime problem, people, do something about it. And they came up with the crime bill. That is, and Biden was with the Black leaders that were pushing for it at the time. So coming back now to say, well, we're mad, but you were with the Black leaders then because the Black leaders of today think that was stupid is not fair. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Biden is also the same person that was out there marching with the civil rights leaders. And he was out there meeting with the civil rights leaders for the last several decades. He was the person side by side with a lot of admiration and respect for the first Black president. Right? So coming back around now and going, I don't know, he's about the same as Donald Trump. There's no equivalence at all between the two for me at all. I mean, Trump came down that escalator point blank talking about how Mexicans are racist. I grew up with a lot of Mexicans, they're rapists and they're crime lords and they're all this other stuff. Again, in any community, yeah, you know what? There are white crime lords and rapists. Actually, the majority of the rapists I can think of are probably more Caucasian than anything. You know, there are people in the Black community that commit crimes. There are people in the Hispanic community that commit crimes. But the ones that he singled out were, you know, some other people that don't look like us.
So once again, to play that devil's advocate, you have on the flip side. Well, listen, I'm originally from New York City, grew up in the hood and the whole nine, and knowing Donald Trump, I always say that people from the South don't truly know Trump. Trump is not a politician. He is a straight hustler with a suit and tie on. Anybody will be his friend. If he's going to make that money and make it happen, he'll be anybody's friend. So it could be something like literally, if you got something that he wants that can make him some money, Liz, you and me, we're doing it together. We're doing it big. So he takes a different approach. So it's kind of like, do you feel like, okay, so Biden has that typical political viewpoint, you know what I'm saying? Like the typical policy, but you know, Trump over here making money, putting money in people's pockets, you know, and so
do you mind if I jump in real quick?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you mind if all right, so I mean, look, it is what it is. You guys just said he's putting money in his own pocket. He's been putting money in his own pocket for how long? I mean,
pretty much too.
His whole life. Whole life. I mean, he comes from
money,
a wealthy line. It is what it is, right? I'm not going to sit here and deny that, right? Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, kind of like what you said, Ms. Kia, is that he's literally putting money. He's allowing people to live the American dream, right? And what's really interesting is, I looked it up yesterday just for fun. I was like, how many times have rappers used Donald Trump in their lyrics before he was president? You know, Jay-Z. Very, very, very successful.
They all know
black guy. Mm-hmm. Always, and there's no can attest to this. I mean, we went to school in Jay-Z's neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it is what it is. We grew. I mean, I won't put it out there, but we grew up in the hood. It is what it is.
Promoting him as the business leader versus the president, because that's
my problem with that though is
exactly.
Okay, so if my thing is, over 3 years, just because he ran for president doesn't make him racist. That's what I don't understand is, how is he all of a sudden racist because he's running for president and he's a white guy?
Well, no. Let me say this. I have this conversation so many times with different people who are conservatives. I always say that because he is not a politician and he is that cunning hustler, if you want to use those approaches, if I have to pander to a certain audience to get that money or to get that vote, I will. So, for instance, let's take those Proud Boys, stand down, stand by, or what? You want me to say what? Oh, okay. So, based upon what his audience is and what he's doing at the moment, he flip-flops. So people who associated with Donald Trump, I know people who worked for him. Donald Trump is not racist. He hired me. Oh my God, we're partying, we're having big fun. But it was for the empowerment or the embetterment of Donald Trump. He's a narcissist. It's all about Donald Trump. So if it's a thing of I have to, denounce or deny something just so I could get that vote and get that money in, he would. I mean, I guess we and I know we could go back and forth on that, but I wanted to ask you something in reference to healthcare.
Okay.
Thank you, because I kind of wanted to I want to get away, like I want to know what else. What,
Yeah.
are you? Because you want to know why? You want to know why for just fairness? Because in my personal experience, when you talk to Trump supporters, it always goes back to race. And I believe that's where we lose that engagement and that understanding.
Well,
Instead of talking about, so I
told you, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be picking your brain. So I'm good. So sorry for all the questions. But in reference to coronavirus, so coronavirus pops up. As of now, we find out there was these secret tapes where he's had conversations about knowing about the coronavirus, knowing how deadly it is. But he said, you know what, I don't want to put the fear out for the American public. A lot of people do that, because they don't want the masses to panic and go crazy. But they went crazy. People bought up all the toilet paper, people bought all the water, all these different things. Do you find that his handling of the situation was appropriate?
You know what? I love you, man. Just so you know, I love you. I love you a lot. All right, so I love this topic, and that's why she's laughing, is because it's almost like a podcast every time we get on the phone, all the time. Yeah. Do I think that he could have done more? I don't know if he could have done more. I think he could have done more sooner. Okay. And I think we can all agree with that. I think on both sides. And when he says stuff like during the debate, if H1N1 was as lethal as coronavirus, we would have lost a lot more lives. And I don't want to use that argument either, because I didn't vote for Obama neither time. In case you couldn't tell. Right?
We know
but so here's my thing, and if nothing else, I'm always fair, and Lizno can attest to that. I don't think that in his first term that he had time to do what he wanted. And although I didn't vote for him his second term, I was not disappointed. And I'm not disappointed that he was president of the United States. I'm not at all. And that's where, for me, I just like voting based on what advances the country, not what advances Wade Carter or Lizno McMaster or Kashim or Charles or Kia or anybody else. I vote based on what advances the entire country.
But what
as far as
do you think they are? Like, what specific advancements are you looking at to say that it's successful?
So if I have to be if you're asking me personally what I feel advances our nation, I think economics, right? Because I think that when you have an economically sound nation and you have an economically sound American people, then everybody can advance. I think when you single out one group and you say, hey, this one group is struggling, let's throw them a bone. I think that's where we're always going to lag behind, right? But I think that if we say, hey, if everybody's succeeding, it eliminates the need for desperation, right? And here's where I don't want to say I fault the Obama administration, because that sounds so terrible. I think Common Core was a big no-go, right?
You're right. You were absolutely right.
That was Bush.
I agree.
Common Core as a whole, but it was pushed under Obama, right? Healthcare reform.
Yes, that was definitely Bush.
No.
Common Core was Bush.
Common Core was Bush.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Common Core was bad.
Common Core is bad. But what was Common Core? But what was Common Core geared for? Common Core was geared for hey, we have this group lagging behind. Let's try to level the playing field and bring them to where everybody's on a level playing field. I disagree with that. I disagree with that because you're going to have neighborhoods, kind of like what we grew up in, Liz, where, you know, based on their economics, they don't want to move forward. Or they just can't,
You're
right?
from Brooklyn, am I correct? You're from Brooklyn, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
My husband's from Brooklyn too, and
Okay.
so, and then I'm from Harlem, and so is Washington Heights, and so is my brother. So we're all from the city, and we've all experienced what you're mentioning growing up, and these things. I have always the argument with Cash when I talk about individualism. Like, well, how is it that you have 20 African Americans on the block, but only one will say, you know what, let me get it together. This ain't right. I don't know if this is the way I should be doing, and blah, blah, blah. But then Cash has to kind of slow and pump my brakes real quick because it's systematic. It's a thing that's bigger than it's not about that one person or whatever. And I think that's what we're missing. But I want to bring it a little bit back to the coronavirus. There's a lot of people that mentioned, I'm changing my vote because I had a loved one who passed away from coronavirus. I had this. I can't. And Biden said, well, it's easier when you took something and you feel better. I mean, Donald Trump has the best healthcare known to anybody on probably this earth. So of course he feels like a superhero and he's coming out bouncing strong. But he doesn't want to wear the mask. He makes fun of people wearing masks, like, oh, you got the biggest mask in the town, like all these things. But he knows that there are people who are not per se educated who will be like, you know what? I don't want to wear that mask and blah, blah, blah. I mean, he placates to that. And
like the person who took the bleach.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Can I jump in there?
And killed.
Go ahead, Liz. Tag, you're it.
I'm in. So, all right. So coronavirus, right? I understand this president, any president, not wanting to create a panic, right? That I understand. But you're talking about somebody that has a cult following. He absolutely could have used that to his advantage, right? Here's what you do. I mean, and to me, this is not even complicated. Any president ever, all the presidents have had their challenges, right? Every president has had, W had 9/11, right? We had the Sandy Hook shooting and many other shootings under President Obama. They have an obligation as a leader to get out there and speak to the country. And you can do it in a way that's disparaging and just drains you of hope and makes a panic. You can do it in another way. Donald Trump, as much as he loves to boast, as braggadocious and over the top as he is, it was this simple, right? He could have spoken to his people, all of us, all at the same time. Hey, listen, guys. We're facing something we've never faced before. But you know what? You got the best leaders. We have the best leader. I would have gone with it. Okay. Got the best leader. We got the best scientists. We have the best doctors, and there's nothing to despair about. Give us a couple weeks to figure this out. When everybody wearing their masks, we're going to stay home together while the people at the top figure this out, and we're going to come out of this stronger. You know why? Because we're American. That's all he had to say. That's telling us there's a problem. It's telling us that we need to come together. It's telling us that we have homework to do, and it's telling us, hey, while we figure this out, can you put a mask on and stay home for a little bit? What would have been so wrong with that? His people would have followed. We would have followed because we believe in the scientists. Even if we don't believe in him, hey, doctors and scientists are on it. Yes, sir. And his people would have said, hey, he asked us to do something. Yes, sir. And we would have been fine. He went with, that's a hoax. It's a hoax by the Democrats to make me look bad. People wear masks to prove that they're against me. These are things that he has actually said. Right? He actually said, if you're wearing a mask, it's only because you don't like me. Right? When 9/11 happened, I think one of the most hurtful things that out of everything, one of the most hurtful things that I've experienced during the Trump administration, when 9/11 happened, George W. Bush was the president, right? Whether you like the guy, didn't like the guy, whatever it was, he came out and you felt everybody in the country, regardless of him, everybody was united. This was a tragedy that affected New York City and Washington, D.C., but I'll be damned if there wasn't anybody, any American, any person in the world that didn't feel that didn't shed a tear, that didn't show solidarity, right? Here we have something that has had almost 100 times the impact of the coronavirus. And as this was happening, when New York was in flames just a couple months ago, and the governor was on TV pleading, he said, please send us what you have. We need those ventilators. We need the masks, right? He goes, if healthcare professionals come help us, we'll come help you. He was in tears. We buried this many people today. There's refrigeration trucks out there. This guy got on TV, the president of the whole United States, and said, this is a New York problem because they have a stupid governor. How's it a New York problem? Where was the unity in that? How is that pro-America? When you have hundreds of thousands of people dead, and we're still talking about, oh, that's a blue state problem. It's a blue state problem because the blue states have the bigger cities. With larger populations, viruses are going to spread faster. That's why it's a blue state problem. It's not a blue state problem because we're idiots. It's a blue state problem because we live like sardines, right? In Kansas, you're not going to have the same number of states. When you're not going to have the same impact, right? Because they live 100 miles apart. So there's no way for me to spread a virus to my neighbor 2 farms over there. But in New York, where you have 400 people that live in one building, which I think people in the South don't realize, it's very impossible to get on the same elevator and push the same button every day if everybody is contagious, right? So to say that it's a New York problem is so ignorant.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. Everything that you're saying, whatever. You know, in the military, you take any military leadership course, it'll say what leadership is. Providing direction,
Military.
and motivation, direction and motivation to a group of people to accomplish a task. And that's what he fails to do. He does not provide direction and he does not provide motivation. Okay? He only provides motivation to the ones who eat up every single word that he says out of his mouth. He is not a leader. He is a businessman, and he's a businessman who ran his business as a sole proprietor. Essentially, he is Trump Corporation. He doesn't have to answer to anybody. So when you have someone who's lived their entire life with zero checks and balances, you cannot expect him to now become a leader of people where you have to maintain checks and balances, and you have to answer to the very people that voted you into office.
I'm wondering, really quick, Wade, I'm wondering what leadership skills do you see in Trump? Do you think he's a great communicator and a great ambassador per se to be the speaker for everyone, to show empathy and sympathy and awareness, ...
And direction.
And direction, thank you.
I think I've told Liznell this a million times. I think he's a horrible communicator.
Very true.
I think,
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that he's a butthead, right? I have my kids listening, so he's a butthead when it comes to, just speaking in general terms, right? And my wife will tell Liz, we didn't hire a babysitter, we hired the president of the United States. And I can actually agree with that to some extent. Do I want my kids to be a butthead? No. And I mean, I'm pretty transparent. I don't think that he's finessed at all. I don't think he has a level of finesse to him one bit. I actually didn't watch the show Apprentice because I couldn't really jump on board with how he spoke. Right? It's not me. What's that?
I worked on the show for 2 days.
Did you?
And after my second day there, I threw the piece on.
Yeah.
I feel like Trump's biggest asset to his voters, his base, what it is that his base absolutely loves about him is, first and foremost, Trump is a huge advocate for Western civilization. And his main goal is to see Western civilization thrive and alive for another 1,000 years.
Underneath him.
If he could rule it for 1,000 years, he probably would.
So here's my thing.
The idea of Western civilization, though, is a bit of a loaded term. Western civilization being short for Western European, right? So, and understanding again that the way we design this country, the way we set up this country, even if you listen to someone like Rush Limbaugh, he'll tell you every day on his show, unapologetically, this country was set up to be a majority white, Judeo-Christian nation. And the fruits of that is supposed to be majority going to majority white, Judeo-Christian people. And so as long as, that is being pushed, or, say policies are being pushed that will ensure that remains the same, then those people gravitate it and those people love it. I know Wade was saying earlier about, communities or whatever, or, people that lag behind. and it's so much, more complicated per se than, these people or, these areas lagging behind. You're talking about people who were purposely by our government put behind and then ensured that they could not move an inch further. So it was not something that, okay, we had a race and these people just lagged behind. These people somehow, we don't know how they dropped behind, but these people just dropped behind. No, these people were put behind. Their growth was retarded and stunted, and these people were, by their own government, citizens of their own country, their own government enacted policies to keep them behind, and also told to their other citizens that you have free reign at these people in order to take any assets that they have or wealth that they have whatsoever with impunity, and we're not going to uphold any of their rights as citizens. There won't be any retribution. There won't be any, problems. So you just go ahead and do what you do. And that's exactly what they did. And what happened was every single, bit of wealth or whatever that Black people had accumulated after Reconstruction was summarily just taken by, what wasn't done by policies, by governmental policies, was done by brute terroristic force. If you had a successful Black neighborhood and we wanted it and we could not do it politically or whatever, then we would just go over there as a roving mob and burn you out of your property.
So just to give a timeout real quick, I want to get to the comments and then I want to go back to what you're saying and talk about voter suppression, because I know we mentioned about the Ocoee massacre that happened. It was something that took place all because of somebody voting. And then I want to touch upon foreign policy. So I just wanted to jump on a comment real quick. So we have Charmaine Moore. It is the same atmosphere. The difference is that now racism is a lot more sophisticated. Now it is hidden behind policies. It is hidden behind laws that is written to have an easier pipeline to prison. Valentine, prejudice, and racism. Go ahead. Jump in.
So going back to Charmaine's thing, and I think Charles mentioned it, it kind of when he said, it was written into our Constitution, right? And then, now it's baked in and it's sophisticated. And I don't want to throw Biden under the bus because I don't believe that. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't throw Biden under the bus. I really just try to advance my position on, why I vote the way I vote.
Gotcha.
Liz made a good point about why he created the crime bill and, his motivation behind it. But at the same time, when I read comments like racism is a lot more sophisticated, well, he baked it in, right? So we can say that he was, I think Liz said, he had a lot of Black leaders that were helping him when he was making that crime bill. And what's really interesting, and now it's going to sound like I'm throwing Biden under the bus. Sorry, my kids are shooting Nerf bullets at me.
They're telling you to vote for Biden.
But it's one of those things where, he said during the debate, because I think Donald Trump mentioned something like, well, you had 8 years, Joe. You had 8 years. And, his comment was, but I was vice president. And that almost bothered me.
Genuine.
That bothered me. And I'll tell you why it bothered me. Is because,
It bothered you?
It did. Because
okay.
for me, like I said, I didn't vote for Obama either term, right? But as the vice president, you shouldn't say things like that. You shouldn't say, well, Obama dropped the ball on that, and now I'm going to clean it up. My man had 40 what? How many years in politics?
47.
I mean, he's had ample time to clean it up, and then to throw it on Obama, on national TV, on a big platform like that, to say, well, I was only vice president, I couldn't really advance my, my position.
And I think
on
for
that.
him, I feel like for him to blame it on black leaders and everything as well was a bit disingenuous as well.
It is.
Yeah, because I do believe at that time that it really was just kind of politically expedient at that time for black politicians, Democrats, Republican. Everybody was beating up on black people. The last thing that you wanted to be seen as a politician was to be weak on black people. Well, weak on crime, right? What it meant the same thing. It's synonymous. So you had a lot of black politicians too. David Dinkins kind of ran out of his mayorship in New York because he was perceived as being like, oh, he's a black mayor. And he's kind of soft on those black people. He's soft on crime. And so a lot of people, yes, they absolutely went overboard. And I believe that they went overboard for their own political expediency, for their own careers, because it was expedient to do. And you've seen different times in different areas, let's say gay marriage, right? Once it became, not so detrimental to be against gay marriage, you see now all kinds of people started coming out for it and what had not. Obama found some courage, so that's politics for you. And when one group is, they don't have any money, they don't have any power, it's easy to kind of kick them around and, blame them for everything and treat them how you want. That's what they did.
All right, if I may. So Biden saying that I was vice president at the time, where I started, where I'm going to circle back to, right? Mike Pence is the vice president now. All the foolishness, and you just said that Trump is not the best communicator. All the foolishness this man has said and done, everything that he's done that does not represent the Republican Party, where has Pence been? What has Pence said? When did Pence say, you know what, as an evangelical Christian, which is his claim to fame, it's not okay to mock people. It's not okay to disparage people. It's not, the sanctity of life, that's Mike Pence's whole brand. When it comes to abortion, the 200,000 dead Americans, we don't have any sanctity of life anymore. Somebody could shoot people dead in Kenosha from a different state that went there to secure the background. You got this guy up there going, somebody has to do something about these BLM and these Antifa folks. But you got Mike Pence, sanctity of life, Mr. Mike Pence. Where's he at? So this whole notion that Biden can't say, I was just the vice president. So where's the vice president now? Where's this guy? Because you're voting for him again, too.
Political
I didn't say that he couldn't say that. I'm saying, well, going back to what I said, was he had.
Just wait this real quick. Well, for me, it doesn't make sense that you would criticize Biden for making a statement, okay, and not being an effective communicator, but you haven't jumped on anything that Trump has said about being an ineffective communicator.
Let's not
when we rack up the numbers, let's discuss how many bad communication things Trump has said compared to Biden. Okay, I guarantee you,
probably go on there right now. He's still communicating in a negative way. Let's
even now.
When Biden mentioned all the kids that couldn't locate their parents, what the president said was good.
Oh, wow.
And that's the president. He didn't have to throw in, he did.
Yeah.
I don't remember saying that.
Well, he also said,
Watch
well, who made the cages? And it's very true. The cages weren't built under the Trump administration. But at the same time, who's worse, the person who shoots the gun or the person who makes the gun? So you have to look at those type of perspectives as well. But going to the comment, we have here once again, Charmaine Moore. If you actually look at the news on the day when Kobe passed away, you will see on the right-hand side that CNN was reporting on the virus. And I guess that was when we were talking about, the timing of when things were taking place. I remember, and from the previous episodes, I'm always talking about prepping. I remember my brother hitting me up like, yo, it's going down over there and trying to get ready. And I'm like, well, let me put my people on. And I'm calling, and we're already prepared in our little section to have the N95 mask and the waters and this. But why is it that the leader of the free world is not doing the same thing? How is it that I got more information than he does? So that's really interesting.
And let's even talk about how he said he wasn't going to leave.
We got another one. They knew about the virus long before it became a pandemic and could have easily prevented the situation we are in now. However, the money is more important than saving lives. I wanted to talk about that because a lot of people say, Biden will shut the country down.
Mhm.
One thing that I do agree with, that he made a statement and said, Trump, he said, the cure can't be worse than the actual,
Disease.
virus. Yeah, the disease. And you look at it, it's like a double-edged sword. Well, if he shut everything down, even though it would save lives, the economy would go whoop, and people will literally be killing themselves because of depression and this and this and this and this.
And we did see that.
Yeah.
But was there a better way? Was there a better way?
I'll like to comment on that. Just real quick. So one of the things is, being retired from the military, and understanding intelligence. Okay, I don't rely on CNN and the CDC and the WHO. Okay, I relied on the information that came directly from countries that were neighboring China, that were impacted first prior to the United States. So the three main countries that were impacted by China, but prior to the United States, was Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. Now, neither one of these states, these are democratic states. They are high on they're all within the top 10 economies of the world. Okay, neither one of them shut down the entire country. Why? Because they did one thing. They wore masks. You see, the experience that they had with H1N1, with MERS, with all the other, with the pig flu, okay? They learned that wearing a mask, I wear a mask, you wear a mask, it cuts down the transmission rate. The economy didn't have to get shut down. The virus that impacted the United States came from Europe, actually. It was a mutation of the original virus that got spread out of Wuhan. All right? That virus decimated Italy. Well, patient zero, who came here to New York, came from Italy. And that person brought the worst strain of the virus here. All the reason why you mentioned with some people about the blue states, the red states, whatever. Not only were the blue states heavily affected, because the blue states are also the largest ports of entry here in the United States. So it's not just population; it's the fact that internationally more people coming through California, Washington, and New York than they do any other place.
Atlanta, Miami.
Okay, and through Miami, and and Miami being the exclusion, being typically votes red. Okay, because of the large Cuban population that's there, typically votes Republican. But for the most part, whatever. Okay, these states, okay, the information was there because you had these. Even the thing with the blood, South Korea was reporting that people of O positive. They were saying this back in January. People of O positive blood type had a higher resistance to the actual virus. We didn't catch on until 2 months ago. That's when it finally started making the American headlines. That if you're O positive, where is the listening to the science coming from our leadership? Because we have 3 clear examples: Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, where the virus was nipped in the butt early on because they took effective action and they had effective leadership.
Effective action. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to before we wrap things up, I wanted to touch about foreign policy. Of course, we've seen politicians, from both sides say, "Hey, my foreign policy is the best. It's undeniable. Putin is my bitch." You know what I'm saying? And and everybody has this viewpoint on they could do it better. Do you feel, Wade, that Trump's overall foreign policy is better than what the Democratic side is offering? And I ask that because, and once again, I'm bad with names, so pardon me, Charles, correct me. At the beginning of the year, when 2020 was just first popping off, I remember, you're gonna call me back to the military because literally a high official in Iran got blown to pieces.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait a second, you can't just do that. Like, I served in the military. Where do we do that? Now, of course, there were people like, yeah, that's what you want to show them your stuff. You know, you want to show them that we're there. But I'm like, wait, he finna start some shit now. Hey, I got out the military a long time ago. Like, what's this? Do you feel that the actions that he's had, kind of pandering and kind of being, you know, sensitive to Putin and these things, do you think, you know, he has a strong foreign policy leg to stand on?
I think that's his. I think that's part of that whole "Make America Great Again." I think, as far as foreign policy, I don't think that America can be great if we're not taking care of foreign policy. I think we have. I don't think we have to flex our muscle as much. I think it's already been flexed. I think we know. I think other nations know, and I think Mr. Charles can attest to this. That we're just not the country to mess with. And that's not, you know, I think that was the case under the Obama administration. I think that's just a claim to the military. I think we have an outstanding military. I think you know, our intelligence division is outstanding. So I mean, as far as foreign policy, I actually like his foreign policies. I think that's what allowed for our economic growth to take place. We're not reliant on other countries as much as we have been. And I think that shows. I think that shows when we're able to, like we said earlier, keep the money in America and put the money in Americans' pockets, rather than farming it out and, you know, hoping that we can cut the next best deal. We're able to invest in America and in Americans, and I think that's shown, and I think it's shown in his military policies as well.
Well, I don't agree. You know, I retired about 5 years ago, and so you know, I still have a large connection with people who, you know, I was an ROT instructor. You know, so I have a lot of officers who owe me their careers, and I still keep in touch with them, whatever, and we talk, whatever. Of course, nothing, you know, secret or anything, whatever. Just this whole blatant discussion, whatever. And you know, there is a fundamental lack of trust in someone who will come out and make one statement one day, and within 24 hours, totally say the exact opposite. Okay, without any, he flies too much off at the lip. It's government by Twitter, and you cannot govern by Twitter. Okay, you know, I should not hear of definitive government policies via his Twitter account. Okay, that should be something that was thoroughly discussed in the Oval Office, something that was then discussed with Congress, which holds the purse strings, which also gives the authorization for war. Okay, these are the checks and balances, whatever, that we have established, and we've systematically, Republican and Democrat, have seen presidents erode at that very fact. The War Powers Act, horrible decision, okay, on giving you know, the president the ability to whatever to pretty much strike anywhere, and then tell Congress 48 hours later, whatever, okay, why he did exactly what he did. So that goes beyond Trump. But as far as for the assassination of a general, I'm gonna butcher his name, Soleimani. The issue with Iran, and a lot of Americans only want to talk about the Iran. I'm a historian, so they only they want to do is talk about the embassy. Our problem with Iran started in 1953 when we helped overthrow their government. There it is, right there. We're the bad guy immediately, right there. When you overthrow someone's government to protect British Petroleum, BP, the gas company that you go to the pump at, whatever, we were there to protect those oil subsidies. They were getting, Great Britain was getting 5 cents on the barrel for a gallon of crude. 5 cents for a gallon of crude. Okay, they were trying to protect that. Operation Axis Operation Anvil was the name of the operation, the CIA operation that removed the prime minister, democratic elected prime minister from Iran, and threw Iran into the mess that is going in right now. So we have no one to blame for that. That being said, was this general posing a threat? We have some people in the intel field that say yes, some people in the intel field that said no. Trump ran on the argument that he was bringing the troops home, and the troops are not home. So that's a failure.
But I think that again, going back to Trump's appeal to his base and what it is that he brings to the table and what it is that they like about him is that Trump is going to put, white America first. He is going to put Western civilization first and foremost. They trust that, look, you owe $400 million to some foreign entities out there. We don't know what government you owe. We don't know who, puppet you might be. But you know what? We trust at the end of the day that you have, the best at heart for white people in mind. And so we are going to give you full carte blanche with that. Usually you can't even get a security clearance if you owe like $3,000.
Oh, that is true.
No, it's true.
Yeah, that's true. I had a
security clearance.
Yeah.
But it's like
hard.
even with the going back to the COVID thing, one of the first things you've seen coming out of conservative circles, and what that whole kind of not caring about the mask and all that stuff is about, is like, look, the worst that this pandemic could do, we're talking about maybe 1 to 2% kill rate, 350 million Americans, you're talking about maybe 3 to 6 million Americans dying, maybe. But when you weigh that versus losing the whole entire system of white supremacy and Western civilization, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. We're not gonna. What would be the point in having a world where, okay, the world survives, but our whole entire system and structure that we built the last 1,000 years building dies? It's not worth it.
Real quick, if I can jump in about the foreign policy thing, right? So foreign policy, I have a nice thing to say about your president. So the Middle East, we've made strides. I don't know who can necessarily take that away. I don't think that he deserves the credit for it. I think that they are making strides in the absence of American leadership, which is a problem. It's not a Trump problem, but it's a problem. But the Middle East is in fact making strides in the absence of American leadership, right? Other than that, though, he came in, he is very much Putin's greatest fan, right? That's a problem. I know that you mentioned that, they just fear our military, and on the strength of our military, nobody messes with us. I think that Americans at one point, I don't know when, I don't know how, but especially recently, we've fallen asleep at the wheel. Let me tell you, Russia, China, all those other countries that you do not want at our doorstep, they have made friends all around us. They have bases all through Central America. They have bases through the Caribbean. They have bases through South America. They have bases all through Africa, and we're pulling back because America first. The problem with shrinking in that way is that we don't even know how very seriously the enemy is not at our doorstep, it's inside of our houses. I kid you not. Most recently, my phone was acting funny. And this whole year, we've all been having issues with our phones kind of off and on. I don't know if anybody else caught it. All my pages on my phone were loading in Chinese first and then immediately translating to English. They're in our houses. They are in our homes, right? TikTok and all of those other things, the way that they're affecting our children, a lot of the BS videos that our kids are watching on YouTube, listen, it's true, right? But like a lot of the BS videos that our kids are watching, and not just Black kids or white kids, all the kids, all Americans, we are caught up on being distracted. Everybody else is advancing. Nobody else spends time on their screens the way that we do. They create these very addictive devices and very addictive content so that we continue to fall behind. They're coming at us from every possible angle. That's foreign policy. We've done nothing to stop it. We've been asleep, and we've been happy to be distracted. We've been happy to be simple. We've been happy to let a virus come into our country and decimate us on every level from other countries. That's a failure of foreign policy. All of that has to do with foreign policy. It's important. I think that one of the biggest things we've also missed as a country in terms of this presidency, sorry about that, is black and white. We talk black and white, like those are the colors that matter. I think right now the colors that matter are actually red and blue. I don't know when the Republicans lost their way. I've always been willing to listen to them. I've voted blue every time I've ever voted in my adult life, admittedly, but I've always been willing to listen. I've always respected the people that I thought had our best country, our best interest at heart. I've always understood I've always thought we needed a Republican Party. One of us spends a lot of money and one of us holds the purse strings, right? I'm on the spend the money campaign right here, right? But somebody has to keep this balance. I don't know who they are anymore. Donald Trump is not a Republican. The people voting for him are not Republicans. The evangelical Christians and the family values people, they're behind this guy. It doesn't make sense to me. They're Trump voters. They're not Republican voters.
But he's exposed the truth that's always been there.
Exactly. He's exposed
the truth is, it was never about Christianity or anything like that. That was never the first thing.
No.
None of that stuff was ever the first thing. And he is exposing it by the way all these different groups, the Christians are like, well, but he's doing God's work. So
oh no,
that shows the first thing and foremost is preserving, white supremacy in Western civilization.
I know you guys can't see it, but take a look. You see it?
Everything else is forgivable.
Face mask says Trump's whole presidency.
That's the first mask he removed.
No, I'm gonna tell you like this. In my personal opinion, Trump walked into office and never had a mask on, and that's what's scary to me. He never had a mask on. Trump came in full face, full everything, and he was accepted.
Let me ask you a quick question. Wait,
unapologetic white supremacy.
I want to ask you a quick question. If for whatever reason, I don't know, breaking news, we hang up these computers, we go about our business, and there's breaking news on, I don't know, MSNBC hits it first, then CNN, and maybe Fox, because Fox sometimes, they're more about putting news out about Trump. But all the major networks put it out. And they say, hey, we got the detailed juice about his tax. I mean, this is official. Ain't no rumors. Ain't no I thought I heard. We found out he's been scamming some people. This is what it is.
Don't matter.
And you still haven't made your vote. Still haven't made your vote yet. You plan on voting, I don't know, today. That's the day you always vote. Would that change your voting ideology or just the premise when you find out the truth? The facts are in your face right now. The taxes is real. He's been scamming. He's been fraudulent. Would that say, hey, don't do it? Oh, he's on mute. Let me. There you go.
You're back on mute.
There you go. You're good.
Oh, there we go. So I don't want to be rude and say, because all you said just now was when we find out the truth that he's been scamming people.
Yeah.
It's not the truth. We don't know, right?
No, yes,
and we don't. Yeah. Okay, but now, how many of you guys are business owners? Right. Right. And as business owners, what do we do? What do we do when we spend money? When we go out to eat?
Well, you put it on your taxes.
Let's just be real.
There are some things we can use as a tax write-off.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So now you have, and I'm not even going to say president. I'm just going to say Donald Trump, right? Spending money, writing it off on taxes. I mean, we're all doing it. And I'm not saying that it's right, but what I am saying, and actually my wife and I kind of get into this a lot, is, I don't write everything off. I don't write off every time I go to dinner and we mention business. I don't write off every single bag of candy that we buy for our dance studio. I just don't. I don't think that that's the right thing to do. And I don't write off big purchases. Actually, I just don't make big purchases. I need a new truck and I refuse to buy one. Not because I'm just not that person. I'd rather pinch pennies and hold on. Do I think that if it comes out that he's writing every single thing off? I think every business owner is about keeping money in their pocket, right?
Okay.
And I'm not saying that it's right, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. I don't know what his tax returns are going to look like. I don't. I don't know what your tax returns look like. I don't know how honest you guys
Oh,
are.
do you pay your taxes?
Right.
Do I pay my taxes? Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
No, so now the problem is that people don't want to listen that he's prepaid his taxes. Everybody's looking at it as, hey, what is he paying right now when the tax returns are coming out right now? But we're not looking at it as when you're prepaying. So like for me, I'm set up on quarterly payments. So if you go to audit me and, it comes out that I owe, money, and, when it's all finalized, I pay $120. I mean, are you really going to hold me to that $120? Or are you going to say, well, hey, what have you been paying quarterly? Well, what I've been paying quarterly is $3,300.
right.
If not, I'm set up to where I get 33% taken out of my salary right off the bat.
He
Okay?
could just release his taxes,
But-
kind of take away some of the mystery and the intrigue.
My question to you, because
Sure.
when I hear you speak, everything circles back around to money. So let's say President Trump, and we're going to be respectful, right? Because he has that title right now. So I'm going to be respectful. So President Trump put you in a position where you weren't seeing growth financially. Would your vote now be different?
I missed that question. I'm sorry.
It's okay, the baby.
So if you speak a lot about economics and the finances and building businesses. So what if President Trump you didn't benefit from that? What if you didn't benefit financially from the moves that the president is making? Would you still vote for him?
Yes. Yes, because I think that, and you know what? If Joe Biden comes in and he says, you know what? I'm going to follow Trump's tax plan. I'm going to follow everything that Donald Trump did economically. That man will get my second vote. If he gets in office this time around, he will get my vote come his second term. I'm like I said, I'm 100% transparent. I think a lot of our issues in America stem from economics, right?
That is true.
I really do. And because when you have a successful person, the desperation is gone. And when desperation is gone, crime is minimalized, right? Because you're not influenced to go out there and rob a bank or, to steal a candy bar. You're just not. Because you know that there's money coming in, right? And I'm using those examples as really small. And just kind of going back to Kashim's theory of, he's all for Western, what did you say? Advancement of
Western civilization, yeah.
Western civilization, and I don't want to be the typical Trump supporter that says, "Oh, he's donated to HBCUs and at a higher rate." But facts are facts, right? If he's donated more, right? And Liznell is laughing because we've had this conversation before.
Mhm.
Just right here in St. Augustine, not too far away, Edward Waters College. Okay, it was a historic Black college. I mean, that's if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the first ones. That neighborhood has been trash. I mean, it's been garbage for the last maybe 10, 13 years.
Well, that's
Okay?
every Black neighborhood.
Right.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes. But now, okay, so now you have a president that says, hey, we're going to give more money to HBCUs than anybody else has, right? Do I think that he's a butthead and saying it the way he says it? Yes, but the facts are the facts. He has given more money. And then when he comes out with this whole thing of let's hire federal employees based on their experience, their ability, rather than their education, who does that benefit? You want me to be honest with you? It benefits the minorities that don't have the opportunity to go to school, right? Because somebody else mentioned that earlier, it does benefit the minorities. It doesn't benefit just Black people. It doesn't benefit Hispanic people. It benefits everybody, right? Because you have a white person that's a crazy welder, or a Black person that's a crazy welder, and the white person has a degree from Harvard and he just happens to be a welder. He's probably going to get the job 2 years ago. But
my feeling is it's just going to allow a white person to hire a white person without a degree and not have to justify it.
But again, that's perception is reality, right?
Yeah.
Because your
Exactly.
perception is, okay, well, now he just leveled the playing field for white people. My perception is, well, shoot, he just leveled the playing field for everyone. He said, regardless of whether you were able to go to school at Harvard or UCLA or anywhere else, you now have the opportunity to get a government job based on your knowledge, your experience, your craftsmanship. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
No,
Hang on, baby.
listen,
But also at the same time, okay, he is getting rid of the ability, the directing of government agencies making contracts for minority businesses. So that's one of the biggest things that was on the chopping block. So a lot of people are saying, oh, well, he's opening up in this area over here, but he's closing it in this area over here. Because one minority company is working on that so-called wall of his. There are capable welding companies, whatever, that could. In fact, NPR interviewed an African American welding construction company who put in to be a contractor, and he didn't get it. Why? All the companies that went to his wall were companies that were part of his inner circle, were people who praised him, who went out of their way to fawn all over him. Those were the ones who got the contracts.
But it's Donald Trump, guys. That's
That's the problem. He is Donald Trump. We're looking for an American president.
That is unacceptable.
listen, we all know that what's written does not mean it's being followed. And that's across the board for a lot of different things past Donald Trump.
We've seen that a lot of times, and where these laws or rules get written in very ambiguous language. And so for affirmative action, for example, by and large, the biggest winner when it came to affirmative action was white women. They were the biggest recipients of affirmative action, because when you really don't make it, if the intention is to help Black people, so say if the intention was to give more Black people federal jobs, you could have literally just did that. You could have broke the language exactly like that. If the intention was to give, even if it was you were going to go broad and say, okay, all minorities, you could have really just did that. So what happens a lot of time is people will make policies, very vague policies, and then it's even say like opportunity zones, right? So an opportunity zone is that, okay, within this zone right here, within this area, we are going to go ahead and we are going to try to infuse cash into that area. We're going to lend more money into that area. Well, okay, it's very plausible that you can make that zone now prosperous without making any of those people that inhabit that zone prosperous. It's called gentrification. What you really end up doing is making the area prosperous, the zone, and then really the people just end up getting displaced. Because if you wasn't going to lend to them before, they still don't have no money. They still don't have no collateral. Nope. They still have no reason that you would want to lend to them by any sort of banking standards whatsoever. So, if we're being serious, the opportunity zones are really just going to be for white people again.
Exactly. That is like Bed-Stuy, where we grew up, right? And so if you look at it now, if you say, but look at Bed-Stuy now, it's amazing. Yeah, but none of us live there.
Yeah.
I live in Bed-Stuy. I live in Bed-Stuy right now.
The majority of folks that I know that grew up there aren't still good. They can't afford to be. There's no way.
And I'm telling you, whatever, okay, the entire neighborhood is being gentrified. They're pushing people out, whatever, to include Black homeowners. The Black homeowners, whatever, okay, most of them purchased these houses and these brownstones, whatever, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, when it was cheaper and affordable to do so. Now they've raised the property tax so high, whatever, it's forcing them out of their own home. Okay. And is that a democratic thing? Racism?
New York is a blue state.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But
New York
again,
is a blue state.
Racism doesn't care whether you're red or whether you're blue.
That is a fact.
Right? It doesn't care. Okay.
No. So
no. We're gonna go and keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real with history. Okay. They were once the same freaking party. Okay. I don't go ahead and disparage either one of them. Okay. They were both the same party. It was known as the Democratic Republican Party, and they had a split. Okay. And just because African Americans now unfortunately vote blue by default a lot of times, whatever, that is unfortunate. But the reason why many of them vote blue by default is because of John F. Kennedy, because he opened up the federal government, and he opened up and it required states to open up governmental agencies to hire African Americans. And he pushed that agenda, and that was a very successful agenda. And it's because of doing that we ended up having so-called loyalty to the Democratic Party. Prior to JFK, African Americans voted predominantly Republican.
Okay, so now with that being said, because you said John F. Kennedy opened up the market to Black America, right?
I didn't say
So
open
now-
I say he opened up the federal government. He opened up government jobs.
Government, fine. Now with Donald Trump putting more money into HBCUs to educate Black people, does he get the Black vote?
Well, let me say something to that.
Why not though?
Oh,
Why
unfortunately,
not?
but no, look, unfortunately,
You're talking about.
wait, we have a
Well, I'm
scenario.
gonna refer to that.
We have a scenario
Come
where
on, man.
when Obama was in office for the time that he was in, if he said, I would like to put a policy in about the blue air, he was getting voted down. Anything that he tried to put out, I like to tell people a lot of times when people start talking about Obama, what he could have did, what he should have did, everybody was against Obama.
And that's why I said that I don't think he had a fair shot to do it in 4 years.
But then it goes to that
Or
question
8 or
too,
20.
is why did he not have that fair shot? Is it because of racism or just because the cards didn't play in his favor? It was his luck.
I don't think it's that the cards didn't play in his favor. I think that we are so stuck on now, like, I think who said it? We're so focused on being blue and red that we're no longer about America, right? And that's kind of, and again, that's why I am voting Trump, is because I feel like even if it's just based on economics, right? Economically, he's the president that makes sense. He's proven it in 3 years. Excuse me?
But he's still riding off the coattails of the success of the Obama administration.
Right.
And that's easy to prove. All I can do is go right to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, which I have right here. I have right here on my computer, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.gov. So this is not from CNN. This is not from MSNBC. This is not from Fox. This is from the federal government saying whatever, okay? The federal government is saying, okay, that the Bush directed, but Obama promoted. So Bush directed it, but it was Obama that pushed it. Infusion of cash into the economy, all right? Helped stabilize the economy. Then we had a secondary boost by the Obama administration later on, whatever, that infused more cash into the economy, whatever, that eventually got us out of the recession. So official U.S. government information, this is not the Brandenburg Group, okay, it's not any of these K-Quan or any of those. The United States government is saying that under Barack Hussein Obama, and I love saying the last name to get the crazies out there, whatever. President Barack Hussein Obama, his economic policies pulled us out of the actual recession.
You know, pull out the chart.
I sure did. I got the chart.
You're right.
No, and truth be told, his job
I got the chart.
His
Right,
job
so-
is better than Trump.
I don't. So we're all jumping over each other. That's what make the point, though. That's going to make the point, though. Okay, I only deal with statistics and facts. Okay, government facts are saying that the economy was improving. The economy was boosted. All he did was continue on with that success. His first year in office, I want you to understand how the government works. That budget that he was operating under was approved by Barack Obama. because governmental is approved the year prior. So all the money that he had for the United States, everything was that policy. So his true policy did not start for only 3 years.
Yep.
So which means we've been in a downward tail spike of 1 year, which means we've only seen 2 years of any type of growth, which was a continuation of the Obama administration.
Well,
And that's just plain facts.
I want to start wrapping up, but I just want to just leave with this real quick. I want to first say thank you to our guests. Thank you to the viewpoints that you share. I always say, regardless of who you vote for, make sure you vote. Don't let that just sit out, in Wonderland and just, roll the dice. Don't vote for Kanye.
Please don't vote for Kanye West.
No, he's not.
Hey, wait, I'm gonna come see if you vote for Kanye.
Yeah, listen, anything's possible. No, I'm just kidding. No.
But we have to get out there and vote. Voter suppression is real. There's a reason why things are happening out there. Why do people want to suppress the vote? We could go on for hours and hours about it. I want to also say, if you're going to vote, don't vote for the party or the person. Vote for the policies at hand. And don't make excuses per se for what, you're seeing. Well, he was having a bad day or whatever. At the end of the day, we have our own ideologies, but just use that power to make your voice. That's the only type of power that we have that doesn't cost anything is our
Hey, Ms.
vote.
Kia, how much time do we have?
We're about to wrap it up because I know that you have your babies.
So,
Hey!
you got to ignore the black eye. It's actually a bug bite. But, I just wanted to touch on one more thing. Can I? Can I touch on one more thing?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Charles, because you brought up property taxes, and Liznell knows that's actually my area of expertise. That's my field of work is real estate, and and I made the comment, I threw it out there that New York is a blue state, and you said out of your mouth that they're raising the taxes to push the black people, black homeowners that are poor in general, not just black, but poor homeowners out. That's a blue state, and you can see that a lot of New Yorkers, if they can't afford their property taxes, where are they moving? They're moving to your red states.
No, not all of them. I know plenty of women who moved upstate.
Who moved upstate New York?
Yes, so they moved upstate because
But again, they're being displaced.
Yeah, no, there's no denying it. There's no denying. I am not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I'm an
No. But my thing is, again, it's one of those things where, and I was talking to my wife about it, is a lot of people from the city that are Democrats are moving to these red states, and they're bringing the same politics, and that I don't understand. I don't understand if you're moving away from the mentality of, well, I'm not succeeding. Why keep that mentality and go somewhere else?
Well, I don't think they're moving away from the politics. I think in a lot of the places they're just being priced out. Where the cost of living. Honestly, Manhattan, New York City, California, Los Angeles, these places are made for fully functioning American citizens. You can't live and have like a third world economy trying to reside and live next to an island of Manhattan, which has the highest concentration of millionaires on the planet Earth. It's just no way to do so, financially speaking.
Miss Melissa just made a comment of most middle class in any state can't afford to own homes. I disagree with that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say it like that, but I think, how many of us are homeowners that are out of the 6 of us? How many are homeowners?
I
am. And I don't know your financial status. I really don't. But I do know that Florida has low property taxes. It's affordable, and it's successful.
And let me stop you real quick.
Is it not?
No. To add to what you're going to say, and this is not to even shut the show off, but just to add to what you said, I was just having a conversation. Even though what you said is actually true, and I own 2 homes in Florida, the unfortunate thing, there are some places that this brown skin cannot go in Florida.
Okay.
And they don't care how many homes I have. They don't care how many nice up neighborhoods I live in. As soon as I walk outside of my area, they're looking at me like you need to go right back where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in Florida in certain areas, oh, you could be popping. You are pop locking down the street, and you like, I'm doing it big. If you're living in that area,
But see, that's one of those things where, sorry, go
you're
ahead.
in Florida at the moment. I would challenge you to go to certain areas and see if you get treated with the same love. They'll look at you and say, no, brother, it's not a one-off. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
And I would just add,
Trayvon Martin.
regarding
Right.
Under the Obama administration, that happened.
But no, it's representative of what we're living through. So it doesn't matter that we can own houses or that we can live in the communities. We still, even though I work hard, I live in my community. Any person, not even an officer, any person can say, "What are you doing here? You don't look like you belong here." Ahmaud Arbery was shot down in this other's neighborhood because what are you doing here? You don't look like you look like somebody that would be here to rob us. It doesn't matter how well we do. It doesn't matter where we move to. If we own our homes, rent our homes, squat in our homes, the penalty is death. And I feel like voting only on the economy and money, like that's the only driving force.
And to add to my own little personal experience, I went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I was told, do not go outside of Gatlinburg. Maybe Pigeon Forge, but not Gatlinburg. No other area.
Right. I've heard that.
There. I told my husband this is exactly what they said. My husband said, we good in Walmart. Ain't nobody being prejudiced in Walmart. We show our black selves in Walmart. The whole Walmart stops. I'm like, hey, is this me? Now they looked all deformed in the face. I don't know what was going on. They were shooting rifles. I don't know. The judge, it could have been in the water. But with that being said, I go to the register. The lady looks at me and says, ma'am, you need to leave immediately. You are not welcome here. This is at Walmart. So when
in what year?
This is what, a couple of years ago, Cash?
Yeah, probably about 7 years, something like that, maybe.
Right.
That scenario still sticks. I challenge you to go to places, even if you are conservative and you have these views. There are people that will look at the color of your skin and treat you all kinds.
Listen, I mean, walking outside of my own office in dress pants, I'm in front of my own office. Car comes speeding by, almost hits my wife. She's white. I mean, obviously you can tell by my kids, but
Don't assume.
What's that?
I said I don't assume.
Well, if you saw my other kid, and Lizno can laugh, you would think that. Yeah, you can't assume. So, and just kind of going back to what you said, I'm in dress slacks. I'm in front of my own office speaking to my white wife, and car whizzes by and I say, hey, man, slow down. You know what his go-to was? F you, nigger. That's unacceptable. You see what I'm saying? And what really sucks about it, and Lizell's going to laugh about this, and I think I told you already, Liz, the guy had on a Trump hat. And see, that to me, it pains me because I'm like, this man doesn't know me. He doesn't know my political viewpoints. But and that's also where I go back to the whole thing of I think when we think of racism, and I saw in the comments, I was trying to read everybody's comments. Somebody said racism and prejudice are the same. They're not. They're not. That dude was racist. And I know that I'm on here with a lot of black people or minorities, but listen, facts are facts, right? If I see somebody, yeah, I know. I hate the term white and black. I really do.
I agree.
Really do.
I use the term African American and European American.
And I actually don't even like that term either. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say it like that either, because I have this conversation with Lizno all the time. The reason why I don't agree with African American either, or European white or whatever it is because we're the only nation in the world where we'll go abroad, we'll go to the Bahamas, we'll go to Europe, and we'll say, oh, we're American, and then it's only when we come back that we're African American or Nicaraguan American, or if we're American, let's just be American. But
that's a failure. That's a failure of the founding fathers for their lack of creating a national identity at the end of the American Revolution. Here we had 15% of Washington's army was made up of people of our color, and majority of them ended up back in slave chains. There was no interest in creating a national identity. It was only interest in creating a white national identity in this country. But
see, we can start now.
It is impossible to do that now. You cannot start now.
I mean,
after 244 years, after 244 years of institutionalized segregation, slavery, laws by the Supreme Court upholding segregation, upholding Jim Crow laws, upholding black codes, saying it's 100% legal. You can't come now in 2020 and say we need to create a national identity when in 2013 Mississippi just passed and approved the 13th Amendment.
Well, and also after that, in 2018, of Winter Guardian just took off of their book about the sundown law, and that basically means that all of us would be lynched if we were out on the street when the sun came down. Don't make a difference if you was a Republican, independent, white, black, I mean, whatever. But if your skin color was of our color, because we're all kind of the same tint, we would be lynched. They just took that off the book.
Well, imagine this. I mean, we all play Monopoly. Imagine we all sitting down, people are playing Monopoly game, right? And you have a couple of people, they go ahead, they take all the money out of the bank, they roll, they're buying up all the property, and they say, hey, well, you other two people over there, you know, y'all can't roll yet, y'all can't buy any property or whatever. They take the money out the bank, they buy up all the property, then they hand you the dice and they say, okay, look, okay, we cheated earlier, right? Okay, we cheated. But from now on, we're going to go ahead and play fair. Everybody's going to have the same opportunity to win the game.
Yeah, I believe it.
Well, you're at the other side. You're like, well, are you going to give me some of the money back? Are you going to give me some of the money? Are you going to give me some property?
Right.
What are we going to do? No, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to, here, you take the dice and, yeah, you have the same chances of rolling and doing anything is
What about a damn property?
But even to what Wade said, where we're the only ones,
based upon racism, and then say, okay, now we're going to go, because this is what the Supreme Court is essentially saying at this point, is that it's illegal to make any sort of law to say that, okay, I'm going to give more federal contracts to black people. I'm going to give employment to black people. You know what I'm saying? That you're going to do these big transformative things that, okay, I'm going to make sure that at least 15% of my student body at my college is going to go ahead and be black. I'm going to let them in. No, it's unconstitutional and it's illegal. We are absolutely against you doing anything specifically for a group because of the color of their skin. But you can't really make everything one American and make it fair until you somehow reconcile that. And with them saying that they're unwilling to part with any sort of money or any sort of power, where do we go from there?
But you've had these laws put in place that specifically stated, okay, that African Americans, blacks, whatever terminology you want to use, mind you, every name that we've been called, whatever, by an outside foreign power. But we hold a total discussion on that later on. But the facts remains is whatever is that you've had laws that said Chinese people cannot live here, African Americans cannot live here. These are laws that are written into the books. So it's always amazing how you can make a law stating so-and-so can't live here, so-and-so can't do this, but you can't make a law that says we're going to help this specific group of people, whatever, because we have systematically been oppressing them, okay? It always boils back to the defense of the law. Well, the law changes all the time, okay, as does your interpretation of the law.
It's funny because when you have different, congressmen and senators and stuff, let's take Marco Rubio, who's in Florida. We're going to do this for the Latino community, and these are the programs for the immigrants, the Latinos and stuff. It's like, oh, great, we're happy they're doing it. But then you say, well, we're going to do this to the black community. Well, why can't we do
Now the problem.
You
Now,
be
yeah,
like,
now it's a problem. Yeah.
Mm.
Now it becomes a problem when you specifically want to go ahead and assist the African American community. When you assist
Right.
any other community in here in the United States, whatever, it's never a problem. It only becomes a problem when you specifically target the African American community, whatever, okay? Because there's still systematic anger over the fact that we're no longer in chains as a people. Okay,
Well, yeah, I mean, but to what
and
Wade
that's
said,
ingrained again in the U.S. Constitution, so you can't deny it.
right, but to what Wade said, he said, we're the only people that when we go abroad, we're American, and when we come home, we're Black American or Hispanic American or whatever. That's actually not true. How many people do you know from the Caribbean that'll say, well, you know, my family is Coolie, or my family, my grandmother was Chinese and my grandfather was Black? You identify as what you are. I mean, if you're Black, you're Black. It is what it is, wherever you're from, right? In South Africa, white Africans definitely identify as white African, and they identify Black Africans as Black Africans
But
too,
even if
and any place else that you go. So this notion that there's something wrong with identifying as being Black American or Hispanic American or whatever it is, there's literally nothing wrong with that. The only issue that I actually have is how much we divide ourselves, right? So we make a differentiation between being a Black descendant of a slave versus being a Caribbean Black versus being a Latina Black. Or, oh, sorry,
that's a whole nother conversation.
it's a whole different conversation, but the problem isn't identifying as Black. The problem is a division, because with divided, we're always going to fall. So the division within the Black community, white people don't have those problems. They're all white. They don't identify specifically unless you really ask them, well, what kind of white? Then they can tell you, and they can tell you their lineage, right? But then they get into, well, I'm British or Irish or whatever. But us, for some reason, it's very important that we identify that I'm more Black than you are because my Black parents came from here, or my Black parents came from the next place. That's a division that we've created for ourselves, that we've adapted, on that helps to divide us and make us fail.
To add to what you're saying, and not to go to a whole nother segment, that's for a whole nother day. But I want to say it's unfortunate that, let's just say, and I will never speak the company I work for, but let's just say you have a company that's a Fortune 500 company, and they make something that's a disparaging comment, you know, like, oh my God, what do they say about this and that? So now you have these comments out here, and they say, you know, we're going to get a diversity team together. We're going to make this right. We're going to hire 10,000 Blacks. Well, when they hire that, majority of those Blacks will be the Nigerians or the Caribbeans. They will not hire African American. When you see that, when they say, hey, we got to fix this, they're only hiring a certain part. So on the out surface, you see Black skin. Okay, well, we're Black. But for some strange reason, African Americans still seem to be on that bottom totem pole. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but I do definitely see that.
Okay.
Well, if
I got
it. Before we go, I just wanted to, if I can, I guess, kind of propose that question to Wade, because I think what we came to was that we do understand, you know, especially with that monopoly reference of, you know, how Black people were prohibited from creating wealth and had wealth, you know, their wealth taken from them. And so I think that part of our inability and difficulty moving forward as one America and as Americans is that we have different tiers and classes of people, you know, economically and everything. And I think it's hard to just move on or move past, you know, just, hey, give me the dice and I'll go ahead and roll and take my chances or whatever. When, you know, everything now, I can't really be expected to go out there and compete with you effectively when, you know, all the resources have already been transferred. So I guess my question would be, I know you were saying you were against any sort of governmental policy, you know, giving, you know, assistance or assets or anything or whatever to particular groups. What would you propose as a way to mend or fix that gulf, that you know, that gap in wealth?
You want me to be honest with you? The only answer to that is you got to change the mentality. You got to change the mentality of where you're coming from and the mentality of where you are, right? So, like, for me, and, you know, it's funny because I think Robert Spurlock, I don't know what your question is as far as do he deal with this, he being Wade. You know, do I deal with the gap there? Yes. and Liz will tell you, or excuse me, Liz will tell you that, you know, I own 2 businesses now because I've worked hard, and you know, I've worked 4 jobs. I've delivered pizzas. I've been a store manager of Adidas, making, you know, $12 an hour. I've had, you know, kid care taken away from me because I made $900 too much. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes, I do deal with it, and to bridge the gap there, I think it's a mentality thing. I think you know, you don't. I think somebody mentioned something about. I want to say it was Charles. Said something about. Sorry, baby. Gosh, I can't remember now. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. But as far as I'm concerned, I think it's just a change in culture, right?
I mean, like me and Kia, we are fortunate to have 2 homes, but you know, that was really the result of you know, both of us served in the military, and so the GI Bill, and again, a robust governmental program, you know, that is one of the few that, you know, definitely African Americans have been able to you know, take advantage of over the years. Because the idea that, okay, you know, with zero wealth, you know, this group of people who is, you know, flatlined on the bottom of America is going to somehow go out there and compete, you know, with their grit, you know, against, you know, Jeff Bezos and the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. I mean,
my brother is from the camp that you pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and we've had this conversation a lot. So, I mean, that's the idea. The problem is that it's hard to pull yourself up by the bootstraps when they literally and figuratively have their knees on our necks. Like, how do you pull yourself up from that?
You need to have the bootstrap in order to do that, whatever. Okay, so you know, and you know, I am big on personal responsibility. I'm a big person, personal responsibility, whatever. Okay, me and my sister and even Ty, we've talked about this numerous times, whatever. Okay, however. You cannot deny the fact that from the time this country was formed in 1776, despite fighting in the Revolutionary Wars, despite serving in Washington's army, despite serving in all the militias, okay, to fight against the actual British, okay, to free this country from tyranny, that the very people you're serving next to you now become your tyrant. And for anyone to deny that, whatever, for me doesn't sit well, whatever, okay? Because how can you say that with a straight face? This is not a racist country. This is not a country that has deliberately held people back. When the United States Army admits this in its own history.
And I think another misnomer is that
if you had served back in 1776, at the conclusion of that war, you would have had slave chains slapped in your hands and towed back to work in the plantation after you just spent 5 years fighting for this country's freedom. That's exactly what happened. Life, liberty, the American dream is an illusion because it was never meant for us, as per Supreme Court decision, the Dred Scott case in 1843.
Well, I think what you see
so here's my thing
of America is I think you see government being responsive to one group of people and not responsive to another group. I think, like, take this pandemic for example. 50% of Black businesses have been wiped out from existence at this point, you know, in this 6 months of the pandemic. A whole 50%. Now, before that, only really like 95% of Black businesses only had one employee. So we really didn't have Black businesses to speak of anyway. But, you know, what you're going to see when the pandemic hit, people were talking about $6 trillion in stimulus. That's responsive government. If white unemployment dips below a certain number, the government is going to respond. The nation is going to respond. The nation is going to say, look, this is unattainable. We are going to give $600 a week in unemployment insurance to everybody for no good reason. The government has always gotten involved when it comes to its white citizens, and it's been a myth and a misnomer that government has been involved when it comes to Black citizens. And in fact, the opposite is true. Most of the government policies that were created during the lately, 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, the New Deal, you know, the fair housing, you know, where you have the FHA program rolls out, and, you know, white people are being given cheap land in Indiana and all of these different things. And, you know, developers are being given cash. It's rules from the federal government rolling out at the same time that you developers, we are going to give you funds to build these homes, these cheap homes, to create all these single family homes, with one caveat: you cannot sell to black people. White people, we are going to give you these cheap FHA loans and allow you to move into these suburbs. One caveat: when you buy this home, you cannot sell your home to a black person. And
So wait, hold on,
These
because
are actual laws.
an hour over, so I want to give Wade the
Well, before you start something, I wanted to do it like a last round table. Cash, if you could give some closing words, then Charles, then Liz, then our guest,
Okay.
then Ty, so you could give us with some closing stuff, Cash.
Well, I guess my closing words would be along in that same vein. You know, me, myself, my political persuasion is, you know, I'm about responsive, robust government. Me being a citizen of the United States, first and foremost, I think that's what the government is here for. We black people have been paying taxes since there's been a government. And, you know, what I was looking for this election cycle is to finally get some responsiveness from our government. And I think that both Trump and Biden are falling short this political season. And so I actually won't be voting for the presidential office. I'll be voting down ballot. And, you know, it's my hope that, you know, black people become more politically astute so we can choose better nominees and, you know, nominees who are more for robust government policies for black people. But, you know, hopefully that will come around with the next election cycle.
Thank you so much, Cash. Charles?
So I'm neither a Republican or a Democrat. I'm independent. I've been independent my entire life. I have voted Republican. I have voted Democratic, depending on the policies of the actual leader. I view this election is systematically different in that we are dealing with a megalomaniac. Donald Trump is not someone who is a leader. He is a businessman who is now in an opportunity to control the most powerful country in the world, and he's using that to his full advantage. And he is only giving you the crumbs so that you will continue to sit at his table. So I will be voting against him. Biden, by that measure, is not that much better. However, I do not believe that with them both being advanced in age, I rather would have Senator Harris in charge of the country as opposed to a religious fanatic like Pence as the president. So that is my standpoint on that. And given the fact that I'm an atheist anyway, whatever, Pence, I would never support Pence in the first place. All right.
Thank you, Charles. Liz.
Okay, so I wasn't planning on going that route, but following on Charles's heels here, I am I'm definitely I'm a Christian, right? And so I am guided greatly by my faith. And my faith leads me to have to try to do what's right for everybody, or well, let's put it that way, to try to do what's right for everybody. I'm guided by my principles and not the almighty dollar. I feel that if you do the right thing will come. And so with that said, it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your faith is. It does not matter what your belief is. As humans, we have a responsibility to each other, right? I've said time and time again, another thing we didn't talk about tonight because we couldn't talk about everything, right? Is even just taking care of the earth. That's something that we're not bringing up enough. We won't have an earth for our children if we keep this up. And this idea that the science isn't real or anything, take science out of it. If you don't like science, then don't, right? If you're a believer like myself, I believe that God created the earth and gave it to us to use. If your parents gave you anything and you destroyed it, would they keep giving it to you? No, we have a priority to take care of the earth. We have a responsibility to each other to take care of each other. We have, if Cardi B, Wade talks about the economy and taxes all day long. If Cardi B said that she's going to run to cancel all taxes ever, not the leader, not the person I want as a an example for my children. Look at the family that we have occupying the White House. That's not leadership. Those are not role models. We have got to get back to basics. What's important to you? Vote based on that. Those are my words.
Thank you so much, Liz. And Wade?
So, thank you. You know, not that I only vote based on economics. I do vote based on what president or what candidate has, you know, the best at heart for our nation. Again, I'm not going to put Biden down. I'm not going to bring Trump up. I'm just going to speak for myself. When I see Biden, I see 40 years of just craziness. You know, not being able to do what he says during his term as, you know, 2 terms as vice president. I didn't see it. So even if it wasn't Donald Trump, I don't know if I would vote for Biden. I just, you know, I feel like he tugs on the heartstrings of Americans. And I just don't, you know, on one hand we have, you know, I think Charles said a megalomaniac. Is that what you said, Charles?
Yes.
You know, and again, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best communicator. You know, for the people that just recently joined us or didn't hear me say it, he's not the best communicator. And I'm not voting based on that. I am voting based on what advances America and what can keep America great and what has made America great. And I don't want to be that tacky person that uses slogans. And, you know, my biggest thing since this whole pandemic came out, since the whole racism thing is taking real motion, it's really, let's be the change that keeps America great. And, you know, and that's using both recent campaigns to really push America first. I really think that when we put America first and when we can really do what's best for America and not just a political thing or, you know, say the politically correct thing, I think that's what really pushes our nation and will push us forward. You know, I think it's really unfortunate that there are people that, you know, are so hung up on racism clouding their brain. Mr. Charles, I have a lot of respect for you, and I love the fact that you know your history. But I think, like anything else, you know, history evolves. We evolve as people. I feel like you're really hung up on, you know, the way how things have been and not the way how things can be. And that's something that, you know, Liz and I go back and forth on. And, you know, she calls me a positive person all the time. And it's not that I am a positive person. I just don't see the actions of one person, you know, dictating an entire race or an entire group of people or an organization or a nation for that matter. I don't think that, you know, in the same tune, you know, Saddam Hussein, I don't think that he, you know, can identify his entire nation. Because I know a lot of good people from those countries. And, you know, so in short, vote based on what advances the country. Don't vote based on what tugs on heartstrings, what, you know, on emotion. I know that's a hard thing to say. It's a, you know, it's almost like I'm taking everything lighthearted, but I'm not. I think, and Miss Melissa, your comments are awesome. But yeah, I've been trying to read everything and, you know, keep up. But you know, I don't think that he's a dictator. I think that he's horrible with words. I think that he does have minorities in his heart when he's pushing forward policy. I know. It is what it is, though. You know, and that's my perception, right? I feel like as a minority, I've advanced more over the past 4 years as a minority than I did in the previous 8 years. Perception is my reality, right? I don't have to say racial wise or, you know, there's going to be stupid people out there, and I mean, it is what it is.
I appreciate your perspective. That's why I wanted you on the show, just so I can actually talk and pick your brain and just seeing what you're come from and your ideology. Ty?
Wade, I love the fact that you're positive, and I love the fact that you're hopeful. And that's I'm not trying to be sarcastic. This is I really mean this. To move forward, we also need to be united. And to be united, we also have to understand. And I guess I want to challenge you and others to look past our personal gains and benefits. Yes, as a man of color, yes, you have benefited. I'm glad you have. You are one of the few that have been able to benefit, and that speaks volumes. I don't want that to be negated. You have benefited from this president, and you've said that over and over and over again. The only thing that I ask again is that we look at things not just collectively, but open our minds to be aware that not every other person of color or even person who is not of color has been able to have your experiences. So when you're casting your vote, don't just cast it for your benefit. Look at the others that are begging to be heard. I heard you. I wanted to hear you. Period. I can't understand the world if I don't understand why people move the way they do, why you think the way you do. History, for most, is history. Leave it in the past, right? I get it. We're hoping for the future, but we also have to look at the here and now. The here and now today is chaos. But to make it to a better future, we also have to understand that there are other folks that are dying, they're homeless, the kids are being pushed out of their homes, they're not getting proper schooling, healthcare is being tampered with for women. There are a lot of issues than the financial issues. So that's all that I ask for anyone is that we look past our doom and we see the world. We don't see red and blue. If you want to talk about America, then look at America. Blacks, browns, Asians, healthcare, education, police brutality, not having police brutality, because like Liz said, not every police is bad. We know that where we're at right now, politics is politics. I'm going to say it like I've said it before in the past. The infrastructure of where we're at is a chessboard to me. It doesn't matter how you switch and mold and carve new chess pieces. We still have to play on that same chessboard. Politics it's not really going to change. I don't know how and what mark we're really missing, but I just want us to be open to other people's experiences when we're voting. That's all I want to say.
So my last comment is just to say, base, and thank you, Ty, and thank you, everyone. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for taking that opportunity, for spending this time with me, and the guests, and just commenting and moving forward. But I wanted to leave with me being in the military. What I always realized is there were certain standards you have to have. The military kind of breaks your civilian mindset down and rebuilds it. And one thing I knew about the military is if you were out of line, I'm not going to chastise you maybe in front of people, but we're going to pull to the side and we're going to get that shit straight. Sorry if the kids are listening. With that being said, we didn't play around. It was, I'm checking you for what you've done. I'm a communications major, and communication is key for understanding. You kept saying, Wade, like, I know he's not a good communicator. I know he's not a good communicator. Well, then you shouldn't be trying to run the country then. You should stick to what you know as a TV star, as a playboy, whatever you was doing, and do that well. If you brought your kids to school at this very moment and the teacher could not properly articulate the vernacular that he needs to actually get this lesson out, then what you're going to do, you're going to go to the principal, you're going to the district office, and you're going to be heard, because this is obscene. I have these kids here, they need to learn, and this woman in the back cannot articulate. What is her problem? You would make it happen. So the excuse that I hear, well, he's just saying these things and communication is key. That is the way we're able to have this forum. That is the way we're able to communicate in many languages and different things. I'm able to understand you. I'm not telling him to make himself over, because sometimes I hear people his age group, but I'm not changing my way to talk for anybody. This is the way I talk, and that's fine. But you have no business running the country if you can't have a simple conversation, articulate that, and let everybody be on the same sheet of music and go from there. We will see things differently. I'm not a Democrat, not a Republican. I'm an independent. I always say Charles is copying off of me, but I'm his little sister. So maybe But with that being said, I think for myself, you have to have standards, and that this president lacks standards. I don't know. I hear him and I'm confused. Like, well, how the hell you talk like a third grader? I understand you didn't care for Barack Obama for whatever reason, but that is one thing he didn't know how to do, was to articulate what his viewpoint was. And if you cannot do something as simple as communicate, then I don't think that you should have the office. So at the end of the day, please, please, please go ahead and vote, regardless of what your viewpoints are. Like what we do, like and subscribe. Wade, thank you so much for coming on. So we can hear you
to our viewers as well.
Yeah, thank you, Thank you, thank you. Love you guys.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Go vote.